Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix 395th film from 2021. It's the adult animated comedy called America, the Motion Picture. It's directed by Matt Thompson and stars the voices of, here we go, big list, Channing Tatum, Jason Mantzoukas, Olivia Munn, Bobby Moynihan, Judy Greer, Will Forte, Raul Max Truujillo, Killer Mike, Simon Pegg, and Andy Samberg. I'm Jesse. I am your host. Thank you for joining me today for this Netflix original film episode. As always, if this is a film you haven't seen yet and you're interested in checking it out, give us a pause and come back a little bit later on, because as we go, I will spoil this film. Other than that, we are going to get into the Fast Flicks, where we do a quick little summary of what the film is all about. So this is set after the assassination of a friend. A revolutionary teams up with a bunch of others to fight against the British in a revisionist version of American history. It's a bit of a mixed bag of a summary. This, yes, it's got a little bit of a common plot thread throughout, but this is a mishmash of jokes throughout, or attempts at jokes throughout in an animated style. So very, very much in the style of like a Naked Gun sort of film. Very random, trying to aim at the lowbrow sort of comedy throughout. Let's talk about this one. How did it end up on Netflix? What's the story behind the film? So the title, obviously, American the Motion Picture. This puts together a whole bunch of different characters from American history throughout the ages, all in one story together. So there's, yes, some of these characters are based on real life people, but the scenarios are often changed because a lot of these people are from different time eras and timelines. So the story of America. So in Spanish, it's called United States, the movie. In French, it's just America, the film. And in Chinese, it's called America, a movie. So there's nothing really that strays away from the idea of this being an American story. The tagline for this film was, "This summer, they're redrawing history." So, that sort of makes a little bit of sense that it's an animated film. It's obviously hand-drawn, which is nice to see, but it's also about the American sort of history. This film was on the 2016 Blacklist. So the Blacklist is a list of films that go unproduced, and obviously it has been produced now, because we go to March of 2017, where the producers Phil Lord and Chris Miller, so the guys that did the Lego movie, the animated Lego movie, they announced that they would produce an R-rated animated Netflix original film called America, the Motion Picture. There is a recurring joke in this film of George Washington, who misattributes quotes to the Bible, and apparently this is based loosely on true events. Washington was known for using familiar biblical idioms in his regular vocabulary, his most used passage being a Hebrew blessing that every man shall sit safely under his vine and under his fig tree. So that is one little reference that I could physically find. There are so many references in this film. A lot of them will go over your head as you're watching this film, but this is one that stood out. This is the first adult animation Netflix original film, and it is the fourth animated project in which Phil Forte plays Abraham Lincoln. The others are a film called Clone High in 2002, in the Lego Movie in 2014, and the Lego Movie 2 in 2019. This did debut at the Annecy International Animation Film Festival on the 15th of June 2021, before hitting Netflix worldwide on the 30th of June 2021, just in time for Independence Day. So there we go. That's where we're at for this film. What are the critics and audiences saying about it? So on Rotten Tomatoes, sits at 34%. That's on 50 reviews. That is definitely on the rotten side. Audience is fairly low as well, 42%. That's on more than 250 ratings. IMDb, a little bit higher, 5.6 out of 10 on nearly 8,000 ratings. And if we head over to Letterboxd, it sits at a 2.7 out of 5, so under that 3 mark threshold, I guess we'd say, on 13,500 ratings, but it's been logged by 17,000 people. I guess not a lot of people actually have logged this film if we look at that. On Metacritic, sits at a 38 out of 100 on their traffic light system of red, yellow, and green. So 38 out of 100 on 18 critic reviews is red in that negative side. And the audience a little bit higher, 5.3 out of 10 on 26 reviews in that yellow section. So you'd have to say not very positive reviews for this film based on what we see there. And I guess we lead into my early thoughts on this one. And I'm going to struggle realistically talking too much more about this film because like I said at the start, this is a mishmash of jokes throughout. And I think for myself, I guess I'm lucky because I do have a little bit of knowledge about American history. I studied the Revolution in high school. I continued American history and politics at university. So I got a majority of the references, which was good. And it is a gag a minute. It's just unfortunate that the jokes aren't that funny. They're like the sort of jokes that you're like, oh, that's clever when you write that. And then possibly it just doesn't turn out too good when it's actually on screen. So not too positive from me in this one. Let's talk about some characters. Let's talk about the American characters that are put together in this almost like Avengers style group that get together to overtake the British. So George Washington is our main character. This is Channing Tatum, voices him extremely well, but we start the film off with him being best friends with Abraham Lincoln. And obviously, if you know a little bit about American history, this isn't real. But anyway, we've got the idea that Abe Lincoln has this bromance almost with George Washington. They're best buddies, but it's abruptly ended at the start because Abe's killed off by this guy called Benedict, who is almost one of the main villains. George Washington, he uses a chainsaw as a weapon of choice and goes on this adventure, I guess, to band together a group of people to get revenge for Abe, as well as the idea of, we see later on, he falls in love and to get revenge for his partner or his wife, in real life his wife, but we don't see them get married in this film. One of the characters that George Washington picks up along the way is Sam Adams. Sam Adams is a beer-loving college jock, I guess, who thinks and Sam Adams, if you know, there is a beer called Sam Adams. So his character here is a brewer. He brews the beer, and he's worried that the British are out to end his ability to make beer, and he's worried that they're going to replace it with tea. And obviously, not tea. If I mention every American reference in here, I'll be talking forever. But obviously, it all plays in. All wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We then get Thomas Edison joins the crew as well. This is a bit of a reveal that they make Thomas Edison into this film, a young female Chinese inventor, and she's accused of being a sorcerer or a witch, but really is a scientist. She's experimenting with electricity, and that's her weapon of choice. We do get Paul Revere, who is a great horse rider, but it turns out it's like a little immature boy who has no friends and probably has some closer relationships with animals than a human, which isn't really a positive thing. He's a bit of a racist too, and that plays off on a few of the other characters that join this adventure too. I mentioned before Martha Washington. She rocks up as almost a lust interest for George, but then turns his motivation into defeating the British more because they kidnap her with their unborn child. So she adds a little bit of that as well. And she gets turned by the British into some sort of tea zombie. Abraham Lincoln, I mentioned before, he only appears at the start and in some flashbacks and dream sequences. So not really a character that needs to be touched on, but our two coloured characters that join the crew is Geronimo, who's the native Indian hero. And I guess his character highlights the racism in a lot of the characters as well. He makes a few good statements about revenge for the loss of life of his people and the land of his people as well. But they do play on stereotypes for this character, as well as this John Henry blacksmith character too. Super easy target for jokes. Obviously, the idea he's black and he's a blacksmith, they play on that. It's so obvious, that joke. But he's put in charge of creating this silver bullet to take out Benedict, because Benedict is the main antagonist, I guess. He's this traitor who kills Abraham at the start, and he's gone back to side with the British. And that happened in real life, but also in this film version, he's a werewolf too. So he's doing King James's dirty work for him, and it's clear that he's going to turn the tables on King James as well. So that's the range of characters and what they are in this film. Other than that, there's not much to go on from the characters. The director of this film, Matt Thompson, this is his directorial feature debut, but he has directed and produced episodes of Archer and Dicktown, the animated shows, and it's clear that you can see his style from those shows reflected in this film throughout. All right, some scenes. Let's talk about some scenes. What are some scenes that stood out? What are some scenes that didn't work for me? I think it's really hard. I struggled to come up with specific scenes or jokes that stood out, because, as I sort of said, a lot of the wink references, they don't necessarily make you laugh out loud. It's like, oh, that's clever, and then you keep moving, listening out for the next one. So I think the start, Abraham Lincoln's death, and the excessive amount of blood and farts from a dead body was chuckle-worthy. That was okay. Martha and George, they're going at it in bed, and she's pretty much straight away, I'm pregnant. And I thought that was quite funny. She's like, I'm a woman, I know. And then it sort of leads into this question as if, George, are you an orphan? And they're like, no, gross, I'm not an orphan. That was okay. The reveal of Thomas Edison being a girl, and the boys are all like, no, Thomas is a man's name. And then they're like, what's wrong with your skin? And she's like, I'm Chinese, there's nothing wrong. I'm an immigrant like you. So they played on the humor to try and highlight some of the racist tones of these characters too. I don't mind the lines that kept coming back at Edison as well about the science, and there's no such thing as science, and continually having to debunk that as well. Another good line in this film was "party like a white man who doesn't face adversity." I mean, there's nothing clearer than that throughout this film, and through probably a lot of American history as well. George Washington, to fight in this big battle, he goes to a shop called Walmart, which is a clear rip-off of Walmart, and he goes to, and it proves how easy it is for him to buy as many big machine guns as he wants. That wasn't too bad as well. I didn't mind the reference to baseball. America's, great sport. It's pastime, being a bit like cricket, but with rules. I thought that was funny. And there's a moment at the end where there's a reference that someone reeks of Axe body spray. I thought that was a good line. And if you're in Australia, Axe body spray is the same as Lynx body spray here in Australia. Some things that didn't work. I got all the references, like at the start, they come quick and fast. You've got the Ford Center, you've got taxation without representation, the American Eagle, and that's just in the first few minutes. And I could list on, and I get that. But a good reference doesn't necessarily mean that it's funny. The repeated joke of the British being the fun police too, that was used so much, not necessarily funny either. George Washington chases Benedict after he kills Abraham Lincoln, and he says, "I'm changing your Netflix password." Like, come on, like that's not funny. The whole disco fluoro horse race thing to find Paul Revere was a little bit weird. George has his dream sequence with Abraham Lincoln that was a bit boring. It was meant to be, I think it was Reservoir Dogs, but I don't know, it was lame. There's a joke about editing Benedict's Wikipedia page to say that he was a good swimmer. Again, lame. This soccer ball that's a killer robot called Manchester because Manchester United are a football team, like, lame. And the Avengers big battle end at the end, like, there's so many references of people and characters and historical events. It was just a bit ordinary. And unfortunately, that's what the film sort of felt the whole way through, just a little bit ordinary. The themes, the ideas of this film, there's a few things that it tries to say. Not saying it does it necessarily very well, but I like the idea the British suck. That's a good one there. Obviously, the idea of working together and teamwork's important. And the idea that America is great because of the many different kinds of people that make it what it is. And that ties in with patriotism and the failed potential at times of America with the contemporary divisions in American society too, because of white privilege, racism, sexism, the broken promise of colonists and the founding fathers in their dealings with the Native Americans, and also those contradictions that the US Constitution has in terms of not giving rights and respect to minorities and women and things like that too. So they're all touched on and done in a comical way is how I would suggest. What did I take away from this film? This was one of those weird moments at the battle at the end of the film. George Washington pulls out like a guitar and plays, was it Lynyrd Skynyrd's song Freebird, trying to turn it into the new American national anthem. It was weird. I'd only sort of recognised and heard of this song in the last week when I was sort of cutting together a song for a student. And to hear this again within the week, it was one of those weird Sixth Sense type moments for me that I was just like, oh man, I've heard this song recently. Where have I heard it? So that's just a personal little connection and takeaway. A question, a pondering, a thought, an idea. I saw this a lot online in relation to the commentary around this film, but would this have worked better as almost 3 short episodes, a mini-series? And is it because of the short, sharp references throughout, it's just too much to consume in one big piece? Would this have worked as like episodic television, a bit like Archer, to sort of become more consumable? I think it's an interesting thought. Maybe the film is a bit too long to try and stay on your toes with all the references throughout. So other than that, I am ready to wrap this one up. We give the films a rating out of 5 on this show. I've got to say, I was super disappointed. I think I really wanted to enjoy it, and I just didn't. And instead of being this updated version of Team America, which it could have been, it's almost unwatchable unless you're American. And if you don't understand any of the characters or the history, this film's just going to seem like a big mishmash of sequences. I think that there was a stage where I was like, oh, maybe I need to watch it again because there's so many references, and I wanted to see them again because I missed them. But I think the other references I missed still aren't going to be funny anyway, so that doesn't give it any rewatchability. I'm giving this a 1.5 out of 5, pretty low for me. Apologies. Like the style, I like the look, I like the style of the film. The voice cast were really good. Just didn't land with any laughs. So we're on socials. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have X, formerly known as Twitter. On the post this week, just the idea I wanted to put as the question is, are there any nations in the world that aren't flawed? Because this film is obviously a lot about how America has been flawed since its inception almost. Like, are there any countries that just stand out as not being flawed? Like the idea of Switzerland being that neutral country, is that the most unflawed nation, or are there too many issues with corruption and money and tax exemptions and things like that there? It's interesting, isn't it, that there's probably no real country that hasn't done anything wrong. Yeah, wild. Anyway, we're back next week. We are back next week with an international film next week from 2021. It's the South Korean horror film called The Eighth Night. It's directed by Kim Tae-hyung and stars Lee Sung-min, Park Hae-joon, Kim Yoo-jung, and Nam Dae-ryum. So take your time, give that one a watch. Horror film, South Korean. I'm hoping I'm going to enjoy this. This sounds exciting. I'm on board. Hope you are too. I will see you next week.